Great to meet everybody. I can't see who's on here except, of course, the wonderful Lacey. So I'm gonna quickly introduce myself, and then, Lacey's gonna do her intro. So I'm KP. I'm right now in Atlanta, and as far as no code goes, I've been in the space for about 2.5 years, and I built about 8 no code products. Built them in public, quote unquote, on Twitter, and you may have heard some of the products like Cuppa, GetCuppa.io or LetterDrop, and many of these. But where I am now is I'm actually working as a program director, spearheading the On Deck No Code Fellowship that's going to start in January. So it's I'm really excited about that. It's kind of the vision is to sort of be like a peer-to-peer community-driven, peer-to-peer community-driven accountability program, almost in the lines of YC, without the investment angle. But if everything works out, we might have that, down the line too. But I'm excited to have a little chat with Lacey, who's also an incredible no-coder in the space. Lacey, why don't you tell people what you do and your background a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I am thrilled to be here. My name is Lacey Kessler. I am the founder of Women in No Code, which is a community focused around equipping and empowering women in the no-code space and along their no-code journey to being a founder, or bringing that in no-code into like their internal teams. I also am a co-founder of Visual Dev Co., which is a training and education platform around no-code, and we have a podcast centered around no-code as well called Visual Dev FM. And I love the no-code space. I frequently work with startups and different companies on either building out products for them or helping them get these no-code, low-code tools integrated into their ecosystem. And so I'm very passionate about it, and I'm really excited about this talk and to be here.
Awesome. Folks, if you have any questions for us, this is going to be a low-key Q&A style talk. We don't have any slides. We don't want to break hop-in. Apparently, we've been hearing issues, so we don't want to break anything today. So we're going to be hands-off, not touching any buttons or anything. But we have a few talking prompts that we'll go through. But if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the stage channel. So let's kick it off, Lacey, with how would you define no code, and what is it really?
Yeah. So the definition that I use is that I say no code is a set of tools that allow you to build products and processes. So I view no code like they're not development languages as we have in traditional software engineering. My background, by the way, is in product, and then from product I moved to software engineering and realized I didn't like to code, and so that's how I kind of made my way into no code. But I view them as a set of tools, so we can build products with them and processes with them. How do you describe it, especially to newbies, people who've never heard of it before?
So I'd say no code's I think 90% of no code is being resourceful. And having that mindset to do what you have, right? So you may not have a coding background, you may not know how to essentially know the syntax to, code or bring a web app to life or a mobile app to life. But no code's basically using what's existing right now, which luckily we're all in this abundant world of web builders and landing page builders, and almost full stack builders like Bubble and Stacker, right? So there's so much right now at our fingertips that you can tap into by dragging and dropping or visually making sure that these things come together. So that to me is no code. It's almost a mindset, of getting the max out of what's available, rather than trying to do it the old school, 6 months MVP style. So that's how we define it. Okay, so I got another question for you. If you're an absolute beginner, right? which tool, like where do you start today?
Yeah. So this is partially why I'm so passionate around education in the no-code space, is because we're taking people who are non-technical and basically saying, okay, you can build all these things, but there's not a lot of education around what that looks like. And so I come at it from a perspective of you have to think like a web developer, like a software engineer. And what that means is like you have to think data, you have to think structure before you think UI and design to really have a good understanding of what you're building. That being said, I love to point people to, there's two tools that I think are really great for beginners. They can go advanced, but really great. One of them is Card. So it's card.co. It's awesome. And then another one is Glide for Card does websites, and then Glide does mobile apps. And I think those are so great. Glide runs off of a Google Sheet. So if you're even slightly comfortable with Google Sheets, Excel, you'll feel right at home in Glide. And I think what I like to have people do and work with is rebuild something very simple. So, in Card, let's rebuild a landing page. And I show them the structure of, the box model, what that looks like. And then in Card, let's rebuild, take some Instagram features or Airbnb features. Let's try and rebuild those, work with our database, that sort of thing. Those are the two that I point them to. What about you?
Well, I think I would say you stole half my thunder there. I wanted to say Glide. So definitely Glide. So I think what you're touching on is very fascinating and very important to note if you're someone new in the space, right? Like a lot of people, especially non-technical founders, who may not have built apps in the past or products in the past, they just think from a user's perspective, like use cases, like what does it do, which is amazing because that's what makes you special, right? That's what makes you a superpower. As a non-technical founder, you can empathize so much with the user. However, when it comes to building, you have to think almost like you have to deconstruct this use cases into like features, right? And so to your point about like thinking about, okay, I want my user to search through a block of listings like Airbnb, home rentals, or whatever listings, right? Now that's the use case. Like you want them to search through this and find the right rental. But if you deconstruct it, what it should look like actually can be inspired by 7, 8, 9, 10 different websites that are doing the exact same thing. You go to Etsy, listings. You go to Airbnb, listings, eBay, listings. Right. So if you can think that way and sort of like peel the onion and say, okay, here's what I want, but the step to get there is through listings, then you can look at no-code tools and say, what tool gets me the fastest to go to this listings feature. And then in that case, it would be, I guess, it would be like Card with Airtable, or it could be, Webflow has obviously now they have listings. But so I think that was an interesting comment you made, and I thought I wanted to riff on that. Yeah. But tools wise, like the beginner friendly tools, of course, Glide, amazing for Google Sheets and mobile apps. The other tool I would say, you said Card, so I'm gonna throw something else in there and say Doric. So Dorik. Yeah, it's very similar to Card. So just like to have options like Doric, Dorik.com and Card.co, both are great.
Yeah, and I think we didn't mention, so none of those. Does Doric do web apps?
Yeah, they're
okay.
web apps.
Okay, I was going to say 2 women in my women community have developed web app builders on top of Airtable. One's called Pori and the other one's called Softer. Yeah. And they are really, really cool. How quickly you can spin things up with just data and do the UI.
Right. Actually, I wanted to. So that's almost like the 2 tools that I would take people to after like Card and Glide. The next immediate level would be Pori.io, right? Which is, I think, let's put that in here. Pori.io. And what's the other one? Softer?
Softer. SOFTR. Yeah.
.io. Yeah. These 2 are incredible because I would also put one more thing here, just they're all like tabletosite.com. So what these do is basically like, you can input user data into Airtable. So that acts as the back end.
Right.
And on the front end, all these three things like table to site, Pori, and Softer will generate beautiful, like user-friendly front end on the backs of this Airtable data, which is fascinating because then you can simply manipulate data in the back end and the front end will automatically refresh and show the latest data. So that I saw my first product. I mean, I don't know if you knew this, Lacey, but my first product in the no-code space was this thing called do-things-that-don't-scale.com.
Oh, I've heard it. Yeah.
Right. It blew up on Product Hunt. It was on Hacker News. It was like everywhere. And I built this on like almost on a whim because I'd been collecting and bookmarking a lot of these hacks, right? Like unscalable hacks from Airbnb and Etsy and eBay and blah, 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 about how these founders have gotten their first 100 customers, first 1,000 customers. And I thought, okay, there should be a content hub that sort of like surfaces all of these in a simple, searchable way. And that became, do-things-that-don't-scale.com. And I built that with Airtable on the back end and table to site on the front end.
Really? I didn't know that. I've never played with table to site before.
It's very simple. It's similar to Pori, so it's amazing. All right. Do you have another question?
I was just going to ask you, what's your favorite tool or tools?
Now that I got to play around with a lot, I think the most robust tool that I think is, for me, my favorite is Bubble, because it just lets you do whatever you want, especially as a non-technical founder. It almost lets me compete with my developer friends. So one of my recent product launches is this thing called Letter Drop. And Letter Drop, my vision was, again, it was a side project, it was not meant to be a startup, but my vision was to be like Product Hunt for newsletter issues that are dropping every day, right? So it's kind of like an aggregator site. And I built the MVP using Bubble. So I had front end, back end, database, everything designed. I designed them everything. And it took me about like maybe 7 to 10 days. I had to like watch a lot of Bubble tutorials, but it was fun. I think so. That's still one of my favorite projects.
Very cool. Yeah, it's amazing.
What about you? What's your favorite project and what's your favorite tool?
Project. So I honestly don't get to build very much anymore, which is kind of weird since I started out building and then now I like do training and consulting and all of that. So I kind of like.
That's all I'm feeling too. I'm getting a little rusty. I'm like, God, I got to get back to building. I know.
I've been working on like some side project stuff just for me. And I'm like, how do I do this again? Like how, I like forgot. But tools wise, I love so many of them. Like Webflow is probably my favorite tool. I've just been using it for so long now that it's just kind of second nature. I feel really comfortable knowing the limits of it. Also love Adalo, Softer. I mean, so many of these tools that I'm getting to use are just amazing. Zapier is amazing. I could hang out on Zapier's website all day long and just, zap.
Right. So for people who are listening, who are watching, so Zapier is fascinating, and I didn't even hear about something else called Integromat.
Integromat.
I've been loving Integromat as well. I'm a big Zapier fan. I'm still paying them $70 a month, which is a lot, but it's because Zaps are so addicting that once you have a Zap for, let's say, like collecting your Twitter followers, putting them on a Google Sheet, and then you just get more and more addictive, and you're like, okay, what if I archive all my, like Google attachments, Gmail attachments, like into Google Drive, and then you just get automations that are so tempting because Zapier lets you like sort of glue in different kinds of endpoints, and you just create more and more systems, and they're just fun, right? And so, Integromat is another option for people who are listening if they want to, explore. It's similar to Zapier. And then I guess there's another one called Automate.
I've heard that one. So,
we use them at On Deck. But so I guess, one of my other questions for you is, what's your sort of prediction on where no code would be in let's say the next 5 years?
Yeah.
Where do you think it's going?
So I think it's moving quicker than I initially thought at the beginning of the year, because we did this thing with Adalo of kind of taking different people in no code and what are their predictions on 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, what have you. And I think within 5 years, no code will be the standard of how we start to develop products, especially for teams, internal teams, product teams, marketing teams, how these are going to be the standard way that they start validating, getting more control over their work. And I think we're going to start seeing some of this, teaching no code in a college setting, like I've taught at Stanford University and then California College of the Arts. And when you're teaching this in a setting, it's more of a mindset rather than the tools, because the tools are going to change, but the process of which you go about developing doesn't change. It just gives you a power that you didn't have before. So I think in 5 years, we're going to see it completely saturated. And I think it's to be the normal of how we develop. I think, people try and pit no code and code, and make an adversary, and it's really ridiculous. Yeah, they're complementary, and they free up developers. They allow them to work on really important work. They give them high, high fidelity prototypes to develop from. They're wonderful. It's a added bonus to development. So I think we're going to see it everywhere, which is really exciting. I mean, even in the past, 18 months, it's grown so much that it's just I just can't believe how many people are here now and interested. Yeah. What do you think?
Right. And I still think it's weird because I still when I got into no code, it was October 2018, and I thought I was late. Because everybody had been talking about it on Twitter. There were so many podcasts about no code already, and I was like, man, I'm so late to this. But as I now realize that I was early, and because we live in this tech Twitter bubble where we think we're late, but we're for the rest of the majority of the world, no code's still brand new, right? And I think in the next 5 years, what I envision is no code to sort of feel like Shopify, right? Or even get to that Squarespace moment, because most people actually know what Squarespace is, but they don't know what no code is, right? What are the no code tools, which is stunning to me because Squarespace could be considered part of the no code ecosystem, because they're web builders. So I think that's where I view it. One of the parallels that I like to draw is about this notion of streaming. Back in the day, Netflix was the first pioneer in streaming, right? And everybody knew what streaming was, but nobody really caught on trend until only maybe the last 3-4 years, where Disney Plus is in, everybody's in now, right? Hulu's in, everyone's got a streaming component. That's how I view it. Just like with cable didn't go away, but streaming just completely dominated the market. I think code won't go away. Some of the more advanced things will be built on code, but for a simple enough MVP, people will choose no code. I think we have do you see that we have a question there from the audience? Leticia SoCal.
So the question is, which one do you recommend for a beginner building an MVP app? I'm assuming mobile app is what you mean. If not, let me know. So I would definitely recommend Glide or Dalo for either one of those, depending on what you're needing to do. Glide operates off of a Google Sheet, so that's your database, your backend, and then Glide puts the UI on top of it. So your user interface, what you interact with, what your potential users people will interact with. That's what they provide. And then Adalo is a step above that. They have components that you can clone in. They allow you to add your own React code, which is crazy powerful. So I think it just depends on what you're building.
Right. I would second what Lacey just said. It's Glide first. And if you really want even more superpowers, then maybe Adalo, but Glide should do most of the job for that use case. Okay, I think we have another question there. We often talk about building MVPs with no code. Is that where the no code uses end? Could you build and sustain a business in the long term on no code platforms, or would one have to switch to building? Depends on complexity. Okay, I think. I'm gonna take that, Lacey. So I think that's a great question, but it's kind of to me, it's kind of trying to put the cart before the horse, right? Like, you don't have to worry about scale before you hit the market, and as you hit the market, you will definitely discover 10,000 other issues you have to worry about than scale. So On Deck, which is a great example, I guess, in this case, On Deck right now is a massive, it's a rocket ship company, startup built in Silicon Valley, but they're like all over the world. They have 30 people, and they've hit product market fit already. And now they're split scaling, but the company was built 40% on no code. Like, we didn't even have a CTO until, just recently, where they brought in Andreas Klinger from Product Hunt, who was a Product Hunt former CTO at Product Hunt. But that just shows, like, until you hit that level of scale where you're like so big and so like moving so quick and trying to blitz scale, you don't have to worry about the scalability of any of these platforms. The fascinating thing is, I'm sure you agree to this, Lacey, too, is if you talk to Emmanuel from Bubble, the CEO from Bubble, or like, they actually are investing so much of their engineering talent in making sure that the ecosystem, Bubble's ecosystem, scales with you, that you don't have to worry about scaling issues, right? They're like spending a lot of time in security, like, scale, like making sure that you have the you have the, what do you call it, CPU power. Like, they're like investing a lot on this, so you don't have to, worry about scale at any point. But if you really, really have to go like 10 million level, with scale, then I would consider.
I feel like if you're making enough money, that's where you are. Scalability is not a problem. Like,
right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Definitely. One thing I would like talking about, like when I'm working with clients, one thing, scalability always comes up, and I have to wrap up after this, but you can't scale something that you can't sell. So if you can't sell it, don't worry about scaling. And scalability is something we consider, but it's not something that we make core decisions around in the beginning.
Right. I love that. So, okay, last point, signing off, Lacey, where can people find you? Is there a product or a course or anything that you want to offer to people?
I'm on Twitter. It's at Lacey Kessler. I'll add it in the chat here. That's where I hang out. I'm working on different products and need to get my website up. But yeah, that's it. I'm working on some really great things that I can hopefully announce soon. And so it was a pleasure to be here. What about you, KP?
Awesome. So people can find me at this is KP _. That's where I am on Twitter. Very active on Twitter, so you'll definitely see me blast off a lot of tweets about this after. But what I'm excited about is to share. What I'm excited about is that, like, actually, even Lacey is going to be part of On Deck's No Code Fellowship starting January. So, if you're interested in a program like that, 10-week, peer-to-peer accountability program where you can take your idea and turn it into a no-code product, please join us. And here's the link. Applications are open, and I look forward to hearing from some of you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, everyone.